Welcome to another episode of Speaking with the Senator. I'm Senator Kevin Avard, and we're in the political season right now, and so we wanted to keep you informed. And before I introduce my next guest, I'd like to ask you, if you don't mind, please hit the subscribe button and the like button. It really does help us with our algorithms, and it helps those that are running for candidate, running for state rep, or whatever office that they're running for. It helps them get out there, and if you want to get involved, that's one way of getting involved, by hitting that like button, subscribe, and share. If you can't get out there knocking doors and getting involved, that's one way that you can get involved with what we're doing today. And with that, I'd like to introduce a guest who's been on before a number of times and also has served in the House, the Honorable Bill Ohm. And he's running for state rep. So welcome, Bill. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
A pleasure to be talking with you again. I look forward to the campaign in the House.
Well, I'm glad that you're running. I know that we need some really sage advice. Seeing what happened last year, it was really divided, and you're one of the calmer spirits, and I like that about you. You're very, I'd say you're one of more of the stronger moderates out there that I know of, and in a time where everybody's at each other's throat, we need some sage advice and some people that have been pillars in the past. So welcome, and so you're running.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I don't campaign on either political party. I just talk about problems and how I'm going to solve the problems for the folks.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of that's the economy. It's housing. Housing is very expensive.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Interest rates, 7% or more.
Bill,
trouble with availability also.
I just saw something this morning on one of the news programs where they're now going to be enforcing, if you have a higher credit score, you're going to be charged more so that the people with the lower credit scores can afford the housing. I don't know how that's going to work, but that's on the federal level. And I don't know how they're going to institute this, but I posted it on my Facebook page, but what are they doing? I mean, if that's not socialism, I don't know what is.
It's the second coming of Barney Frank.
Oh my gosh.
Barney Frank was the instigator in this back in the big housing crisis we had.
Yeah.
Because he was pushing the banks really hard to make mortgages to people who couldn't afford them. So instead of paying a modest rent, they'd pay the same amount of money for a down payment on a house.
Yeah.
And if the house did well, and they could make the payments, they'd keep it. But if they overpaid for the house, or if the economy got soft, or they really didn't have a good job to make the payments, then they'd walk away. They'd just leave the keys and say, see you later.
It doesn't seem to me that that's the solution in fixing this housing problem.
No.
It seems if you had a $300,000 house maybe just a few years back with, or 3.5%, you were paying under $2,000 a month. Now you're paying at that same amount, a little over $2,600. It's hard for people to do that.
Sure, and your monthly payment shouldn't be any more than 30% of your paycheck.
Right.
That's a pretty fat paycheck to have to afford a place.
Well, that's one of the issues that a lot of people are talking about is definitely the housing inflation. I know that's one of the things that people are really concerned about. They're being gaslit, saying, hey, yeah, it's not that bad. Well, I don't know if
it is.
Okay, I do all the grocery shopping in my house. So when I see what used to be $1 a piece for $5 is now $2 for $5, that's a huge increase.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there are people that are on fixed incomes. It hits them hard.
I think we have some solution to this in the housing area.
Mm-hmm.
The accessory dwelling unit option for homeowners, which used to be called an in-law apartment,
Yep.
gets to be pretty interesting now.
Right.
Because first of all, we have a lot of kids who can't afford a place to stay, so they stay with their folks. And if you could do more than just remodel your basement, but to have a place that's a little bit nicer, a lock-off unit that could have 1 or 2 bedrooms. When your kid does better and moves out, you could use that as a rental property and help pay for your mortgage.
On that line, I saw a reverse of that just a few weeks ago. I was called in to do a couch someplace in Pelham. Beautiful house, nice pool out in the back. It was just a really, really nice home, nice neighborhood. The parents were living in the basement It's the funniest. But they both came
Probably
to
no step, they walked right in.
they came into a nice agreement where they were in the basement, the kids had the upper, and they have their own little community in the house, and that was an agreement with the parents with the kids. Okay, we'll both go in on this, and we'll live in the basement. I thought it was funny. It was really a beautiful house, though, but I think there is a positive to that. With the family sticking a little bit closer together instead of being separated.
Yeah, you raise a good point about families and family values. I mean, I grew up in a home with my grandparents living with us. We had a small flat in Chicago. And, you learn a lot from your grandparents. They take a special interest in the grandkids. They keep you out of trouble. They keep you well grounded. They make you feel well loved. The extended family is, I think, very important for the kids growing up.
I totally agree, and lots of candy. Just
Liver sausage for me when I was...
My grandparents lived on Concord Street here in Nashua, and I would visit my grandmother quite often, and my aunt on Old Street. She had her own little place, Camille Tessier. I'd walk in, and there was the candy jar, and she'd give me free haircuts, but... the values that they passed on, you can't replace that. You can't buy that. I'm looking at your palm card. There's a lady on this palm card that looks pretty much like Kelly Ayotte.
Yeah, it bears a pretty good resemblance because it is Kelly.
Yeah.
I always supported Kelly in her candidacy for the Senate. I thought she was a very good personal perspective on life. And trying to help the folks. So I had a talk with Kelly, and I said, I support your candidacy, Kelly. And would you mind if I could team up with you in Nashua? And the both of us run as a ticket and say, look, vote for Kelly for governor and vote for me as the person who can support the governor. And I have to bring that up as an important point, Kevin, because sometimes people think the governor can just make the laws and do things. And no, they can't.
Right.
They have to go with the Senate. They have to go with the House. It has to make sense for everybody. And if the governor wants something, then she'll say, well, Senator Avard, Representative Ohm, I think this is good for the folks in New Hampshire, but I need to have a bill passed that would support this
You need
policy.
to prime a bill?
Yeah.
And I'm excited to work with her. I know that in the beginning, I worked with Chuck, and a very good manager, but I promised Kelly that if she made it past the finish line, I would get behind her 110%, and I am. I think she's going to do very well. I think she's going to be a good governor for everybody. I really do. And she's not hardcore like Craig. I mean, they're
oh my God,
they're hardcore. They don't want parental rights. I know that you have that as part of your platform. Family values. I mean, where I'm looking at no sales tax. I mean, I know that the other side wants a sales tax. That never lowers property taxes. We could send back all the money that the state takes to the towns, and it still won't lower your property taxes because they'll find a way to spend it.
Yeah, that's been the case historically. Whenever there's been some tax relief, it usually winds up going to some admin account, then all of a sudden the spending balloons and the tax relief is gone.
Right, and we just experienced that. We sent at least $500 million back to the towns for tax relief for this or for that or for this. And the locals don't really see it. So they really got to get on their aldermen, selectmen, city councilors. Lowering energy costs, backing law enforcement, keeping families safe, fixing our housing crisis, and champion women's health. I mean, these are what we're hearing from the folks. I know that one of the issues is this whole border thing. It really has bled up north. I was talking on another show. A number of us senators went up to Pittsburgh a few months back, and just in one small location, there were 7,000 illegal aliens. That's what they're called in our Constitution, by the way. If you're not here legally, you're an illegal alien. You can call them dreamers, you can call them illegal immigrants, whatever you want. But there were about 7,000 back then from 70 different countries, according to Homeland Security, state police, local law enforcement, and local residences in that neighborhood. It has now skyrocketed up to over 14,000. They've entered New Hampshire just from Pittsburgh alone. So we want to get rid of sanctuary cities. We tried. And my opponent, Ben Ming, voted to table that. But I assume that you're for making sure that New Hampshire is not a sanctuary city-state.
Oh, absolutely. We have to take care of our own citizens. And of course, we're generous to people who are in need, but let's take care of our own folks first.
Right.
And, I came from a family of immigrants. They came in through Ellis Island. They came in the front door. They had sponsors, they had jobs, they worked hard. My grandfather was a janitor, worked his way up to the superintendent, and we had good family values.
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of people that have come here the right way, that's how they strive to take the American dream for they take it seriously. And I know personally from my own family members that they're also offended by those that cut, jump in the line, and they're taking down resources. With the housing crisis, if you look at Massachusetts, I mean, they're being housed in hotels. They're being housed at the airport. They're using up resources where communities that are struggling. Those resources are being all used up, so that now they're left out in the dark. Stoughton, Mass, just 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you heard about that on the news. Kids that were being bused to school, right? There were 2 buses that weren't available. So they didn't have enough for the students to go to school because they were shipping illegal alien children to places for services. It made the news. We can't afford that. It's not the right thing. It's not the right way of doing things. And I know people are very concerned about that. And of course, the drug epidemic. And you brought in a newspaper. Yeah. New Hampshire will have to prove citizenship. What about that?
Wow, it sounds like Chicago, where I grew up.
Yeah.
I joke with my brother. I say, Gary, you can vote in Chicago, but you have to show a driver's license, don't you? He said, yeah, I do. I have to show a driver's license to vote. Well, if you came to New Hampshire and visited me, you could say, well, I'm in a New Hampshire frame of mind today, and maybe I could cast a vote for it. So, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But he could legally, he could do an affidavit. So thankfully, the governor signed the bill to get rid of these, I'll call them one-day affidavits.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and that you actually brought this up and brought this article because we had a debate on the Senate floor on this particular issue about the affidavits. Senator Gray got up and was talking about there are still outstanding from the last election 200. It's over 200, but I thought it was 230 or 200, some odd number of affidavits that have not been validated.
Validated, right.
So when Senator French won his race a few years back, he won it by 13 votes out of 60,000 potentials, right? So recently in Hollis, I think there was a candidate that lost by 7 votes. So when you add 230 votes, that could really disrupt a number of campaigns across the state. So we're kind of grateful that that's being, well, it's too bad it's not for this election, but for the following election. That'll be a thing of the past.
Yeah, it's a start. Back in my first term, we had some problems with the Attorney General at the time not investigating any of these voters who did say in their registration they were sent a postcard and never sent them back. And who are these people? They're in the wind somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I talked to the AG's office and found out that, well, we got too many of these to work on. We're down about, maybe 300 of these to work on yet. I said, no, you got to be able to fix that. Yeah. So I drafted up a bill. I talked to Dave Scallon and Bill Gardner. I said, that's a pretty good idea, Bill. Why don't we, the Secretary of State, take first-line responsibility for these voter verification cards? And then if we can't find them, then we'll turn it over to the AG for prosecution, because we want to have the elections really tight with integrity. Mm-hmm. So I wrote the bill. Bill got passed, and that's been the first step to get the little bit of screening on these affidavit voters. But the best answer.
People want that. They want to make sure that their vote counts.
Right. You're right. Absolutely. Well said, Kevin.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that we tried to pass this last year, but it kind of failed in the House, I think. There's a thing called the supervisor of the checklist. Are you familiar with that? So people register and then move away. Register, move away. And
it gets stale.
And it gets stale. And just recently, even in Manchester, a friend of mine saw that his son's name was still on the ballot, and his son had moved away 2 years ago. Mm. In Hollis, we got a snapshot of one particular house that had over 7 different residences over the last 10 years registered at that same address, moved away. They rented, moved away, rented, moved away. But all those names were still on the checklist. That was just a snapshot. Now, if somebody wanted to do something dubious and take advantage of that, they could. And so cleaning up the checklist, instead of it being every 10 years, we suggested it would be every 4 years or every 6 years, just to bring it down a little bit, to clean up the checklist.
Chip away at the problem.
Chip away, and yeah, you might have to register all over again. Well, you know what? That seemed to be a big burden to the Democrats. But if you're worried about the integrity of our votes, I know there's a big push to have a lot of these illegal aliens be able to vote in local elections in all the major cities. And people don't realize one of the things that does disrupt is the Electoral College. Because every one of these people that are there,
all this population that is in the state that's not really in the state.
That's right, and they are still counted in the census.
Yes.
And so that undermines the Electoral College. They couldn't get rid of it through a vote, so they're coming in, and they're not doing anything about it. Everybody knows that. Don't tell us that you're going to do something now that you're running for president again. What have you done for us in the last 3.5 years?
Right.
Oh, yeah, but this time I mean
great.
it.
Well, what happened with the past future?
Exactly.
Who's in office, and what did you do about these problems?
So where do people vote in Ward 9?
Well, we have the New Cyril School
off
of Shady Lane, kind of an interesting name for us politicians to hang around. But New Cyril School, wonderful place. Mm-hmm. And election day is November 5. I had a very good day Tuesday.
Yeah.
I was looking at the total vote count, and I did pretty well among all the people who voted for state reps in both parties. So I'm optimistic that people are getting the message that we want a common sense person, here to represent Nashua Ward 9.
So your email is billohm2010@aol.com. Mm-hmm. And your website is billohm.com. That's BILLOHM.com. And
and a Facebook page, too.
And you have a Facebook page. So listen, if you want to get involved one way or another and help Bill out, maybe go door knocking with him. Or even just drive while he can get out of the car. I mean, that's what they're doing in Hollis. They have volunteers. If you want to get involved or even send donations, there's a way to help out, get involved. Last night I was at a meeting, and my first question to the people is, if you don't speak up, will you be heard? If you don't speak up, will you be heard? I don't think we have many options after this election. If we don't speak up, there's some radical changes that are coming our way. And we need to say, enough is enough. I don't want sanctuary cities. I don't want an income tax. I want to make sure that we can lower energy costs. I want to make sure that my schools are safe, and that some of the poor kids might have options. There's a host of issues like that, and we need, like you said, problem solvers like yourself. So we really appreciate you running again, and it's not like you don't have experience. You've been up there, and it's not a flattering job. It's really just a volunteer job.
It is, Kevin. We get paid $100 a year. We're volunteers. We're just trying to help the people.
Yeah. So if you want some sound legislators up there, somebody with some experience, somebody who's not radical, somebody who's really, I consider you a moderate in many ways, in that. I tend to be the guy that hit the red button and watch him fly off. And you and Carl Seidel were kind of like that. Okay, let's take a slow approach to this, and let's look at it. And I'm learning to come down a little bit. But it's people like you that help us to stay on the even keel. So really appreciate you running. So thanks for coming on the show. Again, it's Bill Ohm, Ward 9. And so you can go to Shady Lane and cast your vote.
With the shady characters.
Shady characters. So thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
And thanks for watching the show. We really appreciate you taking the time, and I hope this helps you have an informed opinion as the candidates get engaged in knocking on your door to say hi. Until then, see you next week.